Being a parent is a challenging experience, and the challenges are always there. They just change over time. And I can say that from personal experience that when my children were younger, and I was as well, it was hard. It felt like survival mode at times. And in those seasons of young children and teenagers, and then you mix that with parents, and well-intentioned parents may say or do things that can harm their children. After one such case of my own doing, I was being too hard on one of my sons. I remember thinking to myself, walking away from that, going, I might put cracks in my children, but I don't ever want to say anything or do anything so stupid that I break them. You see, the responsibility of parenting is enormous, and today I want to share with you what you don't want to do as a parent, taking an example from a woman named Herodias. Now, Herodias we kind of covered in our last video, but just briefly, just kind of introducing her, nothing more, nothing less. So I want to give you a little bit of background. Herodias was a woman who was running around with King Herod. King Herod is her husband's brother. I mean, this thing's already shaping up to be a docuseries on Netflix. Now, in this situation, you have John the Baptist, who is in Herod's prison, calling Herod out for this relationship, saying, you really shouldn't have your brother's wife. And Herodias, she doesn't like being called out. Now, Herodias has a daughter who's probably about a teen at this particular point in time, who dances for King Herod at one of his parties. And King Herod shoots his mouth off, and he says he's so pleased with what she does. She says, whatever you want, I'll give it to you. And that's where Herodias, her mother, steps in and reveals her dysfunction that spills over into her daughter. And this is in Matthew chapter 14, verse 8. The scripture says, prompted by her mother, she said, give me here on a platter the head of John the Baptist. Now look, let's put that in perspective. This 14-year-old girl can have anything, and I seriously doubt that she wants the head of some strange guy in prison. I mean, she probably wants clothes or jewels, or if I modernized it to 2022, a 14-year-old girl's going to want an iPhone 13 Pro Max. I mean, let's just keep it in perspective. But what you see here is this: Herodias, her problems, her issues, her hang-ups are wounding her daughter. I can only imagine the damage that she caused this girl. Just consider this reality. In Matthew chapter 14, verse 11, it says this: his head, meaning John the Baptist's head, was brought in on a platter and given to the girl, who carried it to her mother. Now, not to get too gross, but your 14-year-old girl is, you can see, carrying on a wooden platter a severed head. I mean, that's going to mess you up. You see, this is Herodias' issues, and her hang-ups wounded and crushed her daughter. No doubt in my mind. Now, parents today, we can do the same thing. I mean, maybe not the decapitating head thing, but when our unhealthy wants or our unresolved stuff in our life, or where our past hurts or frustrations remain unresolved, we can, like Herodias, wound our own children. Now, parents, if you find that you are too hard, too critical, or your problems that you've lived through or are wrestling with are laid on your children, you're dangerously close to crushing them. So, when you come up against this in your own life, speaking specifically to parents, even more specifically of parents of little children and teenagers, when you feel your hang-ups, your struggles, your trials, the things that are unresolved in your life, and you are laying them on your children, that's not just putting a crack in them, that is crushing them. Resolve those issues with the Lord. Let Him speak into your life to bring you wholeness and healing. And then that way you pass that same wholeness and healing onto your children.